Alright, so first thing is we're going to put our title in our journal. So today we're continuing something we've already started. Yesterday we started talking about conditional statements. That was the if-then. So now we're going to talk about all the types of conditional statements. Okay, so types of conditionals is what we're going to call this. Because there's several types of conditionals. They all have the if in them, but types of conditionals is the title for today. And you just go to the next page after what we did yesterday. You'll title it Types of Conditionals and put today's date. It should be your 7th page. Not literally the 7th page, because I know your constructions took more than one page, but your 7th entry. So if you feel better about literally numbering them with page numbers, like, you can do it different than me. This is for you. I just do it by each entry has its own number, even if an entry took more than one page, but that's up to you. It's up to what you choose for your journal. So Types of Conditionals is the title. And I'm going to actually write on the board just because I feel like it's easier to read. As we did the constructions, a lot of people are having a hard time seeing it. So when it's possible, I'm going to write up on the smart board instead of under the camera. Right, so the very first type is just the regular conditional that we were already using and have been since yesterday. That's the if and then. So this is new. Maybe it's that pen. Sorry, y'all. Let's try it again. Alright. So the very first type of conditional is just a conditional. Okay? So that's the regular if-then sentence. So I'm going to give an example. If it is my birthday, then I will eat cake. So in this example, what part is my hypothesis?
If it's my birthday.
Okay. So hypothesis, remember, is the part following if. So it is my birthday is my hypothesis. So we're going to break this down. Which, remember, the hypothesis, the symbol for it is P. So it is my birthday. Okay, what's the conclusion?
Then I'll eat cake.
Yeah, it's I will eat cake, because remember, it's the part with then. So the conclusion, remember the letter we use for conclusion is Q. I will eat cake. Okay, so yesterday we practiced this with truth tables. So it would be true only if it's my birthday and I eat cake, or if it's not my birthday, whether I eat cake or not. Remember, it's only false if the first part's true and the second part's false. So the only way this sentence is a lie is if today is my birthday, but then I don't eat cake. Otherwise, whether it's my birthday or not, if I eat cake or if it's not my birthday and I don't, those are all true statements. Okay? So remember your symbols. You can either write if P, then Q. That's kind of still got words in it. Or you could write P implies Q. These are the same symbols for both. And I believe we put this in our vocabulary foldable yesterday, the symbols. Alright, so the first other type of conditional is called a converse. Not like the shoe, but it's still the same. Okay, so we know we're done right, we'll go to another page. But a converse uses the same information, but converse switches the P and the Q. Okay, so converse, think of con as meaning like the opposite. I think we have lots of words, and I'm just drawing a blank that start with con. Somebody help me out. What's a word?
Conditional.
Yeah. So like just an everyday word, not necessarily a math word. What's a word that starts with the competition? What's C-O-M?
Conversion.
Con. Yeah.
Constitution.
Constitution.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody still writing this part? All right. So a converse. I'm going to write the sentence first and then we'll define it. So if I take that same sentence I just used, but I switch my hypothesis and my conclusion, what would my sentence be? The sentence we just wrote, but if I switch the if and then part.
I will eat cake if it's my birthday.
You didn't switch it. You put if in the second part. You want to keep the if and then in the same place.
If I eat cake, it'll be my birthday?
Yeah, if I eat cake, then it is my birthday. Sometimes you have to reword it to make grammatical sense, but you remember the if and then are not part of the hypothesis inclusion. It's the part that goes with it that is. So you're switching these two. The if and then stay where they are. Okay? Because if we arranged it that way, I will eat cake if it is my birthday, I'm actually saying the exact same thing as this. We just left out the word then. But the if part was still if it's my birthday. Okay? So when we switch those, I would say, if I eat cake, then it's my birthday. So in this case, what part's the hypothesis?
If I eat cake.
Yeah, I eat cake. So here's the hypothesis this time. I eat cake. And then what part, of course, is the conclusion?
If it is my birthday.
Yeah, it's my birthday. So conclusion is it's my birthday. So what you do is you take your original if P then Q and you just switch the letters. So instead of if P then Q, it becomes if Q then P. Or you could say Q implies P. Okay. So what a converse is, this is the definition, and it is in your foldable. Right? A converse is a conditional statement where the hypothesis and conclusion have been switched. And usually, not always, usually it changes the truth value. But not always. So if the original sentence was true, this one could still be true or it could be false. Okay? In general, you get to assume it's the opposite. Because if it's not, then it has a special name. Okay? So the converse, if I eat cake, then it's my birthday. We would kind of start out thinking that must be false if the first thing was true. But it didn't have to be. I mean, if we all agree that if it's my birthday, I'm going to eat cake, does that guarantee that I don't eat cake if it's not my birthday? No. So would that guarantee that if I am eating cake that it has to be my birthday?
Yeah.
What if it's somebody else's birthday? Might we still eat cake?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why we don't get to assume the truth value the second time. Because it could be true, but it could be false. Okay? They do not have to match, and they do not have to be opposites. It just depends on the situation. Okay? So they can both be true, they can both be false, or you can have one of each. Because technically your original conditional statement does not have to be true. We could have started out saying something that was false to begin with. Like our whole birds fly thing. That's not a conditional. We could have reworded it, but if an animal is a bird, then it flies. But we already know that's false, but it's still a conditional statement. It still has an if and a then. Okay? So converses get switched. So keyword here, because I want y'all to have a way to tell the difference, because the next one and this one get confused a lot. So the converse, you switch them. Whatever your original statement was, whatever the order, the hypothesis and conclusion get switched. Everybody still writing this one? Alright. So the next one, and you'll see when I write it why people get it mixed up, is called an inverse. You have converse and inverse. They sound very similar, so they're easy to get mixed up. The way I remember it is I remember inverse. I don't ever really remember converse off the top of my head. If somebody asks me what the converse is, I remind myself what the inverse is, and it's the other thing. Because this one's easier for me to remember. So I'm going to write what the rule is first, but then we'll write the sentence in itself. So an inverse negates. So here's a word. Might be a new word, but I promise in a second you know what it means. Inverse negates the hypothesis and conclusion. So it's kind of a silly way I remember it, but negates starts with an N. And even though this doesn't start with an N, what's the first thing you say when you read the word? N. That's how I remember it. Hypothesis and conclusion. So I remember that this one means negates because it sounds, when I say it, N for negate. And it doesn't start with an N, but I take whatever I can to help remember things. You know how we have like mnemonic devices that help us remember things? Like PEMDAS, that's a mnemonic device. There's one we'll learn later with the right triangles, but that's just how I remember it. So what a converse does is it takes your original sentence, it keeps it in the same order, but it makes both parts negative. Okay? So our original sentence was, if it's my birthday, then I will eat cake. So how do I negate the first part? How do I make that first part negative? If it's my birthday.
It's not my birthday.
If it's not my birthday. So negating means you add a word that makes the thing negative. Okay? So here's not. That's the negative.
Then I won't eat my cake.
Then I won't eat cake. So I didn't just add the word not or none right into it because I had to make it grammatically correct. But it means the same thing, right? My original sentence, then I will eat cake. Well, then I will not eat cake. I just put won't instead of will not. Same thing. Alright, so in this case, our symbols, because remember, this is now my hypothesis. So the hypothesis is now, it's not my birthday. And the conclusion is what? I won't eat cake. Yeah. So the conclusion is now I won't eat cake. So a common mistake here is, see there's one. That's the negative. It's only negating one part. That's just a mistake that people make sometimes. So I'm pointing it out so that you know that that's a mistake and not to do it. So I won't eat cake was our conclusion. Now symbol-wise, It was if P then Q. I didn't change the order, so P is still first and Q is still second. But how you put for not is you can write if not P, then not Q. Or you could put P does not imply Q. Okay, when you put a line through it, it means the negated version. So this little symbol actually has multiple meanings in math, so it depends on context. Later, when we're dealing with shapes, this means similar. Here, in the symbols for logic, it means not. So if not P, then not Q. Now, the one thing to remember here is I told you the converse could either be the same truth value or the opposite truth value as our original. And the same is true here. But the truth value of the converse and inverse have to match. Okay? So put that on here too. Truth value must match for converse and inverse. Because a converse and an inverse may be worded differently, but they have the exact same meaning. Okay? So here I say, if it's not my birthday, then I won't eat cake. That's the same thing as saying if I don't eat cake, then it's not my birthday. So the biggest thing here is obviously don't get converse and inverse mixed up because the sentences are different. But they'll either both be true or they'll both be false. You can't have a converse be true and an inverse be false. They have to match. Okay? Either both true or both false. Questions so far? We just have two more. One more and then a special one. Okay, the last one that goes with the same sentence, just the way it is, the hypothesis and conclusion, is called, it's a big word, but it's called the contrapositive. Contrapositive. Okay, I'm going to write the sentence for you first, and then y'all see if you can tell me what we did to it. So my original sentence was, if it's my birthday, then I will eat cake. Okay? So this sentence is, if I don't eat cake, then it's not my birthday. So, thinking about this sentence, first of all, what's my hypothesis?
If I don't eat cake.
Yeah, I don't eat cake. So, I don't eat cake. Okay, what's the conclusion?
It's not my birthday.
It's not my birthday. That's the conclusion. So, think about this one logically. If I told you from the very first sentence was, if it's my birthday, then I'm going to eat some cake. If I don't eat cake, does that imply that it's not my birthday?
Not in the first sentence.
So my first sentence, the very first conditional was, if it's my birthday, then I will eat cake, right? So if I'm now telling you I don't eat cake, does that mean it's not my birthday? If we assume the first thing is true, that I'll definitely eat cake on my birthday.
The
So the key one to this one is it has to have the same truth value as the original conditional. Remember how I said the converse and inverse had to match? Well, this one has to match the original. And the reason is we've actually, the converse kind of does the opposite of the original, the inverse kind of does the opposite, This does both. If you look at what happened, this was if not Q, then not P. Because notice we still have the negatives, but then also our order switched. So basically it did the converse and the inverse both. And if both of those things are the negatives, what happens when you do two negatives? You're back to positive. That's why it's called a contrapositive. Because you're back to where you started when you took the negative of something twice. Okay? Or you could say Q does not imply P. Okay? So the four we've talked about so far, just to recap, our conditional, the converse, the inverse, and the contrapositive. The conditional and the contrapositive have to match. They're either both true or they're both false. The converse and the inverse have to match. They're either both true or they're both false. Usually, you have two sets. You have two that are true and two that are false. When you don't, when you have all of them true, say your original was true, but then when you flipped it around, it's still true, that's our last type. Okay? And we use that a lot in math. Yeah, put me trying. Let me tell you about the last one. The last one, it rewrites the sentence in a new way so that you're saying both things at the same time. Okay? Now, this sentence is kind of an opinion sentence, meaning like some people may eat cake only on their birthday and some may eat cake a lot of times, right? So I'm not going to say whether it's true or false for everyone, but for the sake of having it just have a pattern for today, pretend that I only eat cake on my birthday. But that's the one time a year I eat cake, okay? So we'll say that the very first sentence, if I eat cake, then it's my birthday. Or no, if it's my birthday, then I eat cake. That's true. Which does mean for me that if I'm eating cake, it must be my birthday. Or if I'm not eating cake, it must not be my birthday. Okay? So we're pretending that. So if it were true in every direction, meaning the first sentence was true, but then so was the second sentence, that's our last kind of conditional, and it's called a biconditional. Okay? So when you think of the word bi in math, in the real life, it means two, right? For both.
Like a bicycle.
Bicycle has two tires. Bisect, we just talked about recently, means you cut it into two equal pieces. Bisexual means you like two different things. So there's a lot of different words, but with a conditional, it means that you're saying both things. You're saying the original and you're saying it's reversed. Okay? So if I wanted to take my same sentence, which was the original sentence was, if it's my birthday, then I'll eat cake. My biconditional will be, I will eat cake if and only if it's my birthday. Okay? The words that let you know that it's a biconditional is if and only if. That means that when I take my original sentence and I switch it around, it's still true. Okay? So if I tell you if it's my birthday, I'll eat cake, if that's true, then if I write it as a biconditional like this, then it would also be true to say, if I eat cake, then it's my birthday. Or if I don't eat cake, then it's not my birthday. Because all of those things would be the same truth value. So a biconditional is a way to rewrite a conditional if the converse's truth value doesn't change. Okay? Remember we said converse and inverse had to match. The conditional and the contrapositive have to match. So if one of these matches one of these, we can rewrite it as a biconditional. Okay? So all four types have the same truth value. so it can be rewritten as a biconditional. So this does not happen all the time. Not every sentence is a biconditional. So let's think back to some of our Venn diagram things we talked about. I think one thing we mentioned is if I'm trying to reword them as a conditional. Remember we talked about like the big circle inside the little circle, or I'm sorry, the little circle inside the big circle, and it was like animals was the big circle, and then like we had a little circle inside that was dogs. So if it's a dog, then it's an animal. Agreed?
Yes.
But if it's an animal, then it's a dog. That doesn't work. So we can't rewrite that as a biconditional because that was a subgroup. It doesn't work forward and backwards. Okay? But we had one, yeah, the one where we had one circle was all the squares, and then the other circle was all the quadrilaterals with 4 equal sides and 4 equal angles. Well, that's because that's literally the definition of a square. So that doesn't matter which order we say it. So I could say if a shape is a square, then it has 4 equal angles and 4 equal sides. That's true. But if I say if a shape has 4 equal sides and 4 equal angles, then it's a square. That's also true. So I could rewrite it as a biconditional because it would have the same truth value in every one of those first 4: conditional, converse, inverse, and contrapositive. They would all be true because the thing that I'm using to compare is its definition. So this one really only works when basically you're saying something that the two things go together and they really can't be separated because they match. In this example, I rewrote it as a biconditional, but this might not be true for everyone. Plenty of people eat cake when it's not their birthday, right? You might eat it when it's your sister's birthday or your mom's birthday.
Or just for fun on your side.
Just for fun. Let's be honest. So a biconditional doesn't get used for every single thing. Whereas any other conditional, you can write the converse, the inverse, and the contrapositive. But usually the converse and the inverse match, and the original conditional and the contrapositive match. But if they all 4 match, it can be rewritten as a biconditional. Okay? Y'all with me so far? All right. So let's see what we need to add into our journal as far as some words. You already have the definitions in your foldable, but let's add the symbols into it. So we're going to turn the page to our logic vocabulary, which was just from a couple days ago. Okay. So notice we have some of these words in here. So we already talked about our conditional, but now we've talked about our converse. So remember, these were our symbols. The converse is where you switch them. So you could say if Q then P, or you could say Q implies P. Okay? And I would say you don't have to use the one I use, but whatever you wrote as your conditional here, as your example, do the converse of that one so you're not confused. Me, I did the if I get paid Friday, then I'll take you to the movies that we talked about. So if I write the converse of that, it's if I take you to the movies, then I got paid Friday. Okay. The inverse is, of course, the one we just talked about. Remember, inverse uses the negation, which is actually one of our other vocabulary words. So remember, the negation was just this symbol. And so this just means to make negative. How you do that, I can't tell you. You just add the word not, because it depends on the sentence. You have to make the sentence grammatically correct. But some version of a negative, not, don't, won't, none, never, any of those words, whatever fits into the sentence to make it grammatically correct. So I can't just say add the word not, because that wouldn't always make sense. So the inverse was the negation. So it was, if not P, then not Q. Or you could say P does not imply Q. Okay, so I'm using the same example here, the one that I had already written, but you use whatever you wrote. And if you hadn't written anything yet, then you feel free to choose this one or write your own. It's your choice. Because remember, these notes are for you to understand it. So, but if I use this one, if I don't get paid Friday, then I won't take you to the movies. Oop, I gave myself very little room to write movies. So sorry, that last word is movies, but I had to get littler and littler on that. Okay, somebody remind me what the contrapositive was. What do we do to it? This one we switched. This one we negated. Huh? Say again? Yeah, we switch and negate, right? So perfect. If not Q, then not P. So if this one changes the truth value, and so does this one, if we do both, we've changed the truth value twice. That's why this one has to match the first one. So you could also say Q does not imply P. So, and this one, if I don't take you to the movies, then I didn't get paid Friday. I just realized on the very last slide we did, I didn't put the symbols. So we'll put it here, and you can add it on your other notes if you would like. So we said that the biconditional is where you rewrite it. If all of these are true is one thing, using the words if and only if. So it's the second part first, if and only if, the first part. That's how you write it. I didn't misspell if. In math, if you put IFF, that means if and only if. So it's not me misspelling if, it's just the way they do the symbol. So this would be, I take the first part, I'll take you to the movies, that was my last part. See how I'm putting Q first? So here, I put, I'll take you to the movies if and only if I get paid Friday. In this example. You can use whatever example you'd like. So I'll take you to the movies if and only if I get paid Friday. This is what we kind of assumed it meant. If whenever we were talking about it and I said the original sentence and we were talking about whether things were true or false, when I said the very original sentence, if I get paid on Friday, then I'll take you to the movies, a lot of us wanted to say that that meant if I didn't get paid, I wouldn't. And that's not what I said. But if I reword it like a biconditional, I'm saying both. That the only way you're going is if I get paid. If I don't get paid, you're not going. Okay? So the only words we have left on this are inductive and deductive. We'll talk about those more tomorrow. But I do want you to add one more thing to your other, because the assignment you're going to do tomorrow requires you to know a couple words that you might not have learned in middle school. Theoretically, you would have, but we both know, or we all know, that sometimes things get skipped, and especially considering we've had the COVID stuff going on recently, there may have been a lot of stuff skipped just for time's sake. Is anybody still writing this? Okay. I'm not going to try to go over it, like close it when you're using it. Marion, do you have this? Okay, so, all right. We just forgot to write the if and only if. So this one was Q, if and only if P. Now the last two words I wanted to basically define for you, you may already remember. And they actually have nothing to do with the biconditionals. You're just going to need them in order to write your biconditionals and all that stuff. So they're just some random vocabulary that didn't have anything to do with that lesson. Anybody still writing this? The first word is supplementary. This is when angles add up to 180 degrees. We haven't really talked about angles yet this year. The reason it's in the lesson is they assume you remember it from junior high, but as I said, I know we don't always do that. So supplementary means angles add up to 180. You might remember it because complementary meant they added up to 90, but we don't need that one for our lesson tomorrow. So a linear pair is the other one. If you break this one down, and you probably could figure it out, linear means it has to do with a line, and pair means two. So this is two angles that form a line. So like this, we have a line, so we have this angle here, but then we also have this angle here. Together, they make a line. That has nothing to do with what we talked about today, but it is something that you'll need on your assignment tomorrow. And there's some vocabulary that you may not have remembered from middle school if you ever even heard them. Do they sound familiar?
No.
The last
The linear pair.
linear pair does? Not supplementary?
No.
Okay. And that's why we review it, because in case you didn't learn it in the first place or you just forgot, either way we need it, so that's what we're doing. Now, I'm not giving you a new assignment today, but don't forget if you didn't turn in the truth tables from yesterday, don't forget to turn it in. I told you you could take it home and finish it, but you got to remember to give it to me.